When you create content, have a plan as to the structure of that content. And the structure means both what you present first, second, and third, and last, and what you present within that content to keep the pace up and keep attention. We have all these formats for all of our different kinds of content internally. We have our content we produce for our customers, which is more educational content. We have the Business of Marketing podcast. We have shorts from that content. We have LinkedIn shorts and YouTube shorts and Instagram shorts. And so what I'm trying to do now is visualize, and something we can share with our customers, because we know these formats and all the assets we need to make the videos for their podcasts or for our internal content work. But I want to make a visual to show all of these pieces so we know what assets we have to create. So what we have here is, and you can show that part on the screen, is this is a work in progress, but for our YouTube videos, our standard YouTube videos, which includes, in our case, for Business and Marketing podcast, we typically do a hot take at the beginning of the video, like some phrase, something from inside the video that catches somebody's attention, gives you a feeling of what the show's about, but also leaves some intrigue to make you want to watch. And then a branding intro, which is just a clip that gives you just enough to see the brand, the logo, maybe a sentence about what the podcast is about. Used to, we'd have a longer intro. There wouldn't be a hot take. It'd be a whole, this is the so-and-so podcast where you get this, that, and the other, and why you should listen, and here's your host. Attention spans and YouTube trends have had us change to this format, and it's become more effective. So hot take, quick branding intro. We're talking about, between the hot take and the branding, maybe all of 10 seconds for all of this. The hot take could be 10 seconds, but then the intro is going to be 3 or 4 seconds. Not a lot going on here. And then straight into the content, straight into the conversation and delivering value within that first 30 seconds.
And the key of that hot take isn't just to intrigue you to want to go further, although that's part of it. It is to deliver actual value from the very first second of the podcast.
Right.
That's crucial.
I learned this and I want to learn more.
Exactly. And, I think the original way that podcasts were often staging big introductions was they're emulating radio and trying to deliver radio onto the internet. And then over time, realized that you're already in the podcast. You're already sold to listen. You're not cruising along and you come across it. Yeah, you might test drive a podcast. You're already there. You better prove that it's worth staying. And so
we're way past the time of adapting radio. And we even hear some podcasters either name or call their podcast radio, and it dates them. I mean, it's not radio, it's podcasting, and now it's more video. It's video first. I would say most of our clients started out audio and then it went video, and now most start video and add on audio because you already have it formatted. So most podcasts are video first nowadays.
Oh, more than that, once you get past this branded intro and you're actually into the content, I think it's very important to I think this is part of the format. You actually, when you get to that content part, it must be content. You shouldn't spend the first 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, setting up what the content's going to be and talking about the concept of the program and all these things. In fact, even introducing your guest with this elaborate bio, I often caution hosts against that. If you feel the need to go into the bio in detail is important, invite your guest to tell their bio in their own words. Then that becomes content instead of just this pomp and circumstance of what your show is going to be while it's in motion.
Yeah. Because and you'll see that if you look in your analytics for your especially for a YouTube video, you'll see your drop off happens typically during that introduction because you didn't get into the meat of why they tuned in the first place. And I said tuned in, that's a radio phrase, dates myself. But the reason why they chose your channel or your video. I stopped doing introductions like that. and I kind of gauge it based on how popular my guest is to the audience. Like if I'm interviewing somebody that most my podcast is about marketing, so if I interview somebody who most marketers have heard of, then I skip past that really fast because one, that video is in context somewhere. Either it's on YouTube with information below it. If you're watching on YouTube, you can always Google or search the person. If it's on your website, the information's there. They didn't come for the person's background, most
Oh.
cases. They came for the value you're bringing. Now, there are cases where someone's an expert in your industry, but not well known, and their story may be relevant. But in that case, I would still suggest going into the meat of the story, of the information first, and then coming back. So I'll often say, you're going to get into your background or your new book or whatever, or your research later. But right now, the question that we really want to understand is, what about this?
Absolutely. Or you can invite the guest. Another way to do it is invite the guest to answer a question using the context of their career journey or their background.
Yes.
And then that becomes useful. So, for example, with us is Jane Smith. She is the go-to person on technology innovation in XYZ industry. Now you've framed her with context without getting into detail. Jane, let's start with this. You pivoted a business from this place to this place like nobody ever has.
I love that.
How did your journey going from law school to technology innovation allow you to be able to do that? Now
So
she's
now
going to
you
frame it in a
snuck
way
in.
that's useful for her, right? And
I
interesting
love
to
that.
us.
Yeah, you snuck in their whole bio in the question,
Yep.
right? Because I was thinking like, you're talking to a scientist who just had some medical breakthrough. So Jim, during your time at NIH, how did you discover so and so? That was my short one. Yours was even better because you framed the whole bio in the question. I love that. So back to this format, because you want to have a format in place. And the reason why I'm diagramming this out is not only for us internally, but also to have a visual to show to our clients. But so each video will have a hot take, a branded intro. We can give instructions on how the content should jump off. Also, let's go to the very end. So the end screen is after you say the end of your show, or you may just have an abrupt ending. Then it goes to a brand. Now on YouTube, you can have it elaborate enough to have squares where you're going to put in the different end screens that YouTube has designed, which could be a next relevant video, could be a playlist, it could be your logo, it could be a subscribe now, whatever. That's an end screen that you design that will be the same on every video in this series. That way your viewers get used to and expect it. Now in between, you'll notice I have these two little triangles here, and this is what we're going to be adding, which is these promos or ads into our content. Now, these are burned into the video, not YouTube ads, not Vimeo ads, whatever. They're promos where I may say in the middle of the video, hey, by the way, we're going to take a quick break. Did you know about Content Monster does remote video production for executives, blah, 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 blah. Go to contentmonster.com now. Back to the content. Marketers and sales leaders, if you want to close more deals and drive real revenue growth, you need cash. And I don't mean money. I'm talking about my new book, Cash, the 4 keys to better sales, smarter marketing, and a supercharged revenue machine. It gives you a proven framework to improve the 4 areas that impact revenue the most: communication, alignment, systems, and honesty. You need a stronger sales and marketing engine, and this book will show you how to build it. Get your copy now at aleejudge.com/cash. Now, back to the content. I'm talking 15, 20, 25 seconds tops. What we're going to experiment with is, I'm thinking 50% through is where we're going to drop the first one. Now, if it's a 5-minute video, then 50% is 2.5 minutes in. If it's a 20, 30-minute video, we could do a 50% and we could do another one at 75%. Depending on how long it is, that one will vary where it's at. But I'd love to give at least, and this is an experiment, at least 2 to 3 minutes before there's an interruption. And even within that, you have to judge it by how is the content rolling out? What is the conversation? Where's the first segue between questions where it makes sense to insert an interruption.
One of the things, though, that we want to keep in mind is where we learn this idea of, and I'm not picking on the way you phrase this, Lee, but we picked up this idea of, essentially, we're going to take a break. Here's this message. We're going to be back, is from broadcast TV or radio, where we were so afraid the person could turn the dial because they don't want to listen to the commercial. They are here. It's even better, I think, to not bring attention to the fact that there is a break, because essentially this is part of the content. This is part of the program. There is value here. You don't want to telegraph this isn't as valuable as the other stuff, but we'll be back with the valuable stuff in a second. You just keep on trucking.
Yeah, so I've looked at a lot of content creators and how they do it, and I wrote some scripts yesterday for my own that I'll be recording the next days. And what you said is very important, and I had to be careful not to put any language at the beginning or the end that implied that this was a break. And I noticed the good ones, they never say it. It just goes to black or goes to the next clip, So at most, I may hear, hey, marketer, by the way, so-and-so and so-and-so and so. The same way you would do if you walked into a conversation. You don't say, hey, we're taking a quick break. None of that. And then on the back end, I'm debating with, hey, back to the content. Maybe, because at that point you've consumed it. But I've seen some good ones who just said, check us out at contentmonster.com. For video, you create the video without thinking about there ever being an ad. And then your editor will edit in this interruption whenever it's appropriate in between a space.
Of course.
Right? So just like when we do the audio version, on audio, we can do dynamic insertions, which means that we can retroactively go back and add an advertisement in anywhere, and we can change where it's at. We can take it in, put it out on a schedule. That can be done with audio, but as of now, not so much with video. So this format is where the producer, the editor, will bake it in after the fact. So we might go take a video that we've already done, but not posted yet, and say, okay, this video is for people who would like to read the book, our book. So because of that, we're going to insert the book promo halfway through, right? It has to match the video itself. But when the video was created, it was not created with any idea of ads in it. So let's go into some other formats. So we talked about the end screen. So this is for a standard YouTube video or a podcast. So when we start off or create a show, the first two assets we need to get are the brand intro and the end screen. We need those two things because everything else happens in post-production. Now, for YouTube Shorts, this is one that gets interesting because we've taken a TikTok logo approach to these, whereas we save the branding to the very end. And it's going to be really short. You've probably all seen the TikTok, and it's just a TikTok logo, slight animation. It's really quick, but if you watch enough, you see it over and over and over. So for us, YouTube Shorts and LinkedIn Shorts. YouTube, we have different channels and different topics. So when I was promoting my book, we had an end screen for the book. When we were doing YouTube, if we do shorts, for example, for this behind the scenes, we have a behind the scenes ending. So we have a library of these clips ready for whoever does the post-production to drop in at the end of the appropriate one. In fact, this is incomplete because we're going to work on this. I want to make a chart of something we can give to our editors to say, you're working on a content monster behind the scene. Here's your intro, here's your end screen, here's your splash if it's a short. So this incomplete document here, the only one complete on this screen is the Business of Marketing podcast, because for that one, it's already in production. We have a branded intro, we have an end screen for YouTube, and then for those shorts, we have an end splash screen, which in this case happens to be the same as the branded intro shorts, because it's really short. Yeah. So anybody who's watching this, when you're looking at your different forms of content, build this library for your editors or allow your editor to build one for you so that you can quickly keep your branding consistent across all your properties.
That's really smart.
If you're a marketer struggling to create content that's truly unique to your brand, here's the key. Your experts and executives are your most valuable content assets. Conversational content like videos and podcasts featuring your team stand out above all other content. So, instead of creating content that sounds just like your competition, start leveraging the unique voices inside your company. Thought leaders and authentic conversations build credibility and engagement. At Content Monster, we specialize in remote content production, meaning we coach your people to be comfortable on camera, then we capture and produce high quality videos and podcasts featuring your team and customers. No need for expensive production crews, long production plans, or complex setups. Want to see how it works? Visit contentmonster.com today to learn more.
Can you go back to the other one for a second? I had a
Mhm.
question for you about that. That'd be great to talk about. So, a lot of people out there, when they're making shorts for YouTube or LinkedIn, they're putting little hot takes, little teasers at the beginning of
Yeah.
them. And I know that's something that generally you haven't advocated for in the shorts that we make for our clients or for ourselves at Content Monster. Why is that?
Well, I think it's something we can play with. I haven't done it because I'm so conscious of the little bit of a time we have to get to someone, um, and because the first frame or thumbnails become so important. So what I see trending as of this recording, this video, is having some kind of a text in the first frame that serves as a thumbnail, so that when you're scrolling through a bunch of videos,
Sure.
depending on the platform. Now, if you're working on trying to optimize using one clip across multiple platforms, you got to consider how that clip performs or behaves on those platforms. For example, on LinkedIn, a video may not automatically play depending on your settings. So maybe all you have is that thumbnail with text on it. Also, did you create a thumbnail or did it choose the first frame? These things are different per platform. Does it autoplay? Different per platform. If you mouse over it on desktop, does it begin to play? All those things play into it. So we did see at first the hot take, and then it went into the video, and then you see the take again later on. But I think it depends on maybe how long your video is. For example, TikTok, YouTube, they're all pushing up to 3 minutes now, even longer on TikTok. So I think the longer the video is, the more it makes sense to do a hot take. If you're under 1 minute, I think I'd be better off doing a video that's designed to loop, so that the viewer doesn't know when it began over again. That way the whole video is a hot take and you get to it faster. So I guess that's the answer is, if it's short enough to not need a hot take, don't do it. But if it's over a minute, maybe then a hot take makes more sense.
That's good call. But, there's only so much real estate you're dealing with. And a lot of times we're struggling to keep it under a minute, especially including the splash. The end splash uses up time as well. Even if it's only 2 or 3 seconds,
Yeah.
it's that's 2 or 3 seconds less you have of time to deal with if you got to be under a
Yeah.
minute.
And I think before we go, it's worth noting that even for shorts, the time for shorts is getting longer and longer. We used to have what we call a short, which was understood as under 90 seconds, typically under a minute. Then we had highlights, which we would think of 3 to 5 minutes, and then we would think of a full video. But right now, the shorts are pushing 3 minutes, which makes us think, is this a highlight or is it a short? And then you got to figure, okay, these are platforms designed for short attention span, but yet now people are doing 3 minute videos. That makes you think even deeper on, okay, is my video engaging and fast enough to keep people for 3 minutes? And that means a lot more work, because it's a lot more work to keep somebody engaged for 3 minutes than it is for one.
Mm.
And it's very possible, but we've all seen those cliffhanging videos that the only reason why it lasted 3 minutes is because you're waiting for the watermelon to explode for the first two and a half,
That's right.
you know?
That's
So, and we hate those. See, you laugh because you've seen it.
yeah. So I have a question. Maybe this gets into a whole nother topic for another time, but so you have a 3-minute video, but the first minute, let's say, is the most compelling, but really you have a lot of content in the last 2 minutes that's useful content, maybe just not as attention grabbing. Is it useful for you from a, essentially an SEO or discovery standpoint to still have that 3-minute video, or is it better to keep it down to 1 minute, the most compelling part of it, to have the maximum engagement percentage of your video?
I would post both. If you have the resources to do both, do both. Because think about it. We we have a business line based around taking long and making short. And just because we made the short doesn't mean the long isn't as valuable.
Yep.
So, two different platforms, two different attention spans, two different audiences, perhaps. And there may be cases where you could condense the whole idea of the 3 minute one down into 1 minute, but that doesn't mean the three is all junk that you cut out. So, we're in a place now where we have a lot of choice of what and how we consume content. It isn't like you had so few TV stations and the TV is on that channel. It's what you're going to get. Everybody watches the same show at Thursday at 8 o'clock. Those days are so far gone that today's viewers don't even understand the concept of having to wait or not having a complete control of what they consume. So I think that within your marketing budget, within your production abilities, you create as many versions in as many places as you can for all those attention spans.
So we've covered some content structure, content mapping, and the nature of using that content to tell a story within the right the format and length that you have. What would you say is is sort of the thumbnail takeaway from all this?
When you create content, have a plan as to the structure of that content. And the structure means both what you present first, second, and third, and last, and what you present within that content to keep the pace up and keep attention.